And now from San Diego, California, welcome to the Gentle Jab Show. With a little gentle jab coming from the left and another gentle jab coming from the right. We'll exchange some punches, but they'll be pretty light. We'll debate politics and have a friendly fight. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Gentle Jab Show. On this show, Democrats and Republicans come together to discuss current events in the United States and around the world. On this week's show, we'll be discussing 5 topics. We'll be discussing gun control, unemployment, the midterms, immigration, and inflation. John, do you want to kick it off for this week?
Yeah, sound like a pretty good list of topics there, Mitch. Now, the Democrats want to talk about gun control. I'd like to talk a little bit about criminal control. You know, if we took the statistics for DC, Baltimore, New York, Chicago, LA, and San Francisco out of the numbers, the United States would be one of the safest places on the world stage. So 2 officers were shot dead up in Los Angeles just 2 days ago by a guy who should have never been out of jail. So I think this is a big scam. It's a takeaway. People have a Second Amendment right, and I think it's outrageous. Now, Bill Clinton, I'm sure you're all in favor of gun control, but I know that you have Secret Service protecting you 24/7 and your wife as well. But what is your position?
Well, we do, but it kind of goes with the territory. We earned it. But I will say this. School shootings are out of control. I think you could admit that, right, John?
No, I don't know that I would admit that. I think the school boards in Uvalde, they let down the school and the kids. I mean, we've known about this for a while. They should have had a security officer in there. They should have had teachers that were trained and ready to fire, and they should have had a little more vigilance. I think there was a complete breakdown in the Uvalde Police Department and the school board. So I don't think that that is any pandemic, but you know, we've got to get our hands around this, but I think the Democrats are going off in the wrong direction.
I completely agree with you, John. I think that if all the teachers had training and if they had a firearm that they, after going through that training and knowing how to use that firearm, I think that there would be a lot less school shootings happening if the students knew, or if some subject was planning on coming in to do a school shooting, if they knew that all the staff had a firearm, that I don't think that we would be having this problem.
Yeah, now the problem I think is career criminals and recidivism. Now let's cue up clip 1, Mitch, and see what the city of Atlanta has to deal with on a daily basis with this recidivism and career criminals committing crime after crime, being let out. These liberal DAs, we just recalled the DA in San Francisco. We're going to recall the DA in Los Angeles. So let's get a look here and see what's going on in Atlanta.
John, your words are hurtful.
Yeah, very much.
City leaders are pointing to repeat offenders as a driving force in Atlanta's surging crime rates. The police chief telling 11 Alive 20 people recently arrested have been accused of 500 offenses over the years. And new at 6, our Caitlin Ross is looking at the city's solutions to keep repeat offenders behind bars. Caitlin?
Sheba, the top leaders in the city say it's frustrating for officers to make arrests only to have those same offenders commit the same crimes as soon as they're released. The chief said they made 20 arrests this weekend where each person had 3 or more felonies on their record already.
These repeat offenders had a total of 553 previous arrests, 114 of those being felonies. These are the challenges that the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department face it, as well as the citizens who are victimized by these individuals.
Police Chief Rodney Bryant says people convicted of committing violent crimes need to get real jail time to keep the city safe. Mayor Andre Dickens says one way to do that is through a new Crime Watch program, allowing people to watch cases progress through the court system, putting extra pressure on the courts.
This allows them to be able to see the trial, see the cases, but also it allows judges to see that community members and victims care and they understand that they want to see good sentencing as it relates to violent crime.
Chief Bryant says they're also trying to crack down on illegal guns, which they found are increasingly being used to commit violent crime crimes in our city.
Letting them know that we are watching them, giving our men and women on the street the resources to identify them better, giving the courts more information to convict them better.
Chief Bryant says his officers are returning to post-pandemic response protocols to more proactively serve the community, like their PALS program that engages young people and gives them more productive options. One thing in particular is a midnight basketball game that the city hosted in 2018 and 2019. They say that really worked in diverting young people away from crime. They're hoping it has the same effect now.
Hello, my name is Ashley Cheddar.
Yeah, now, Bill Clinton, I would
It
like
could
to
be
ask you-
Lady Ashley Cheddar. Established Titles is a company that lets you buy.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, I'd like to ask you, when you saw Kamala Harris tweeting that people should send money to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to put these rioters, looters, and all the shenanigans that were going on up there, did you send money in? Did you feel embarrassed as a Democrat that your vice president?
Embarrassed. I mean, she's entitled to her opinion. I didn't really get involved in that. I didn't send any money, but getting back to the gun control thing, John, we've had 213 shootings this year. My question is, why would someone sell a gun to a young person? I think this young man was like, in Texas, was 18 years of age. How was he able to get that? So I think a lot of the problem would be is to do better background checks. And I'm not against people having guns, but I think the type of guns is something that should be discussed with the AR-15s, assault rifles. I mean, it's not a hunting rifle. Why in the world would you ever use it?
Well, there's a Second Amendment right to self-protect yourself, to protect your family, protect your property.
But John, you don't need an assault rifle to protect your family.
Well,
You never know
sometimes you
who's
might.
going to be breaking in.
How do you know that? You don't know that. You got
No, he
6
doesn't know that. By the way, if he ever had one, he'd probably shoot himself.
Yeah, so I think this gun control, I would rather see criminal control. If you put these repeat offenders like they see in Atlanta, I mean, I don't think any of us have 5 friends that have been convicted of felonies, let alone, tens and dozens of felonies, people that are getting rearrested. The guy that shot the 2 cops in El Monte should never have been out on the street. He was on probation. It was illegal for him to own a firearm or have a firearm, and he did it anyway. So getting our hands around the criminal control, to me, is the better solution.
I think that the NRA right now is the weakest that it's ever been. And I think Democrats on this issue make more sense. It's the Republicans that don't want to give it up. They're bound to the NRA. A lot of donors come from the NRA to the Republican Party.
Well, did you happen to see President Trump's speech at the NRA last month?
I mean, why would I?
Yeah, he gave an excellent speech. I mean, it's so easy to make the argument for the Second Amendment. Why are you opposed to putting criminals behind bars and stopping all this recidivism?
Well, it comes at a great cost too. We're having trouble right now incarcerating. We have more people incarcerated than anybody else in any other country in the world. So other things need to happen besides incarceration. And I think that as we just discussed it earlier, that, there's things that we can do.
Well, fine. When you get these people in jail, let's make sure they're mentally stable. They get treatment they want, but drugs and crime have caused all this misery in our country. And then Joe Biden and the Democrats are just riding along with it. Now, anyone else have a comment on gun control before we move on?
I feel sorry for these people in jail. I could have been there with them.
Well, a couple of your buddies in that Whitewater land deal down in Arkansas there went to jail, so I just think that criminal control is the way to go. The Second Amendment, you could take all the lawful gun owners in this country and they're protecting themselves and their families. They're not out doing the kind of things these criminals in Baltimore, New York, and LA and Chicago are doing. You cited some statistics. You take a month of what's going on in Chicago, that's worse than what happened in the last 5 years in the schools.
John, what we found out about this young man is that he was deeply depressed. So there's most of these things are mental problems like you brought up earlier.
Yeah.
dental problems.
Yeah, now let's move on to unemployment. I know Joe likes to get up there and he's on Jimmy Kimmel saying what a great job he's doing and people don't understand and he's tired of all the lies about what's going on. You know, it's what's interesting is you have a labor participation rate. If someone is not looking for a job, actively looking for a job, then they don't count in the unemployment. So unemployment is artificially low because there's a bunch of people who aren't actively looking for jobs. So all these statistics that the Democrats love to throw around, and this Janine St. Pierre, the new press secretary, it's all hogwash. President Trump, you had America first, jobs coming back, energy. We could employ all kinds of people if we would get this energy going again and be energy independent.
Well, it's very true. And, well, the first thing he did was the Keystone Pipeline. We need to reenact that quickly. And I think things are going to happen. I wish November was next month. I just wish it was next month because I think we're going to come in and it's not just about us winning. It's about the country winning. And we're going to get back to winning again. That I can tell you. Yeah.
I mean, Joe he never mentions winning, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. That agenda is so woke. It's so clueless. It's so out of touch with what Americans are feeling and what goes on. So I don't put any faith or value on these, reports out of our labor department as to what the unemployment. Joe, oh yeah, unemployment's really low. I mean, here's what's the problem. Gas prices affecting 90% of American families. That is a breakfast table item, and grocery prices. Can you imagine being a senior on a fixed income and the only check you get coming in is Social Security, having to make that go? Now, Bill Clinton, I haven't heard yet that Joe is going to travel to or have any rallies like President Trump is doing. You think Joe's just going to hide in the basement through the midterms?
Oh, come on now. I mean, no, why would he hide in the basement? I mean,
he did it during the general election.
No, he wasn't hiding in there. He just went down there during the summer to get cool. But I will say this, the unemployment, it's not, nor should be a loan. It's not a loan to people. And I know some states want to be paid back. They want money back for it. And, for giving out these loans. Well, they called loans. They weren't loans.
Well, so, you remember your buddy James Carville with the statement is it's the economy stupid?
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So look at this graphic behind me. 82% of Americans feel that the economy is either poor or only fair. 82%. Joe is off on the wrong path. I don't know, the last number was like 80% of people think that America's on the wrong track. So you guys are going to have a tough time. Now let's move on to the midterms.
Yeah.
Last Tuesday in Texas, Mayra Flores won a seat that had been held by Democrats for 150 years. It's an 84% Hispanic district. It's a +8 Democrat district. Her husband is a border control officer, and she's a neophyte. She's never held public office before. So, Bill, do you see that this is a bad sign for Democrats going into the midterm?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No, because I think it's too early to tell. I mean, right now there's 35 seats up for grabs, and I believe that Biden is he's going up in the polls. I just saw one today where he's starting to go back up. And
he's going up in the polls.
Which could trigger Democratic voters. When they see positive things happen with Joe, I think it will change the minds of a lot of people.
Now, whose poll was this? Was this Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow? Whose poll was this?
I just made it up.
Yeah.
No, but seriously though, unemployment is low. And, we've gone through a lot with COVID. You know that. I mean, Trump went through it a lot. And there's a lot of things that happened, the war in Ukraine, and you've got all these distractions going on around the world. And of course, the border is a problem right now. We'll talk about that later, but with immigration. But, there's a lot of factors that, it's easy to point the finger and say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. But I think all in all, the quality of American life is not that bad.
Well, obviously, you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks and you've got armed security keeping you and your wife safe. But these are real issues. These are table issues for Americans. Now, I think it's going to be a huge red wave in November. We're less than 5 months away now. President Trump, you're holding rallies, you're endorsing candidates. You've got like a 98% victory rate. Had a pretty good primary night the other night. So I think that the Democrats are going to have to wake up and see what's going on. And it may take a shellacking, a red wave, 50 plus seats in November to wake them up a little bit. But we're going to put the clamps on Joe and Kamala and get them back on some reasonable path.
Well, you're absolutely right, John. We're scaring the living hell out of the Democrats right now. They're losing their minds. When you watch all the cable networks, they're going crazy. They don't like what's going on. They're still trying to get me. They're still trying to get me on that insurrection thing, which is an absolute joke. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is going to hell in a handbasket, and they're worried about Donald Trump.
Yeah. Now, if you want to worry about somebody, how about worrying about this guy? If you want to do gun control, why hasn't this guy been indicted for falsifying a federal firearms application and dumping a loaded gun? It's just amazing how it's a two-tier system. Now, Peter Navarro, I think he was treated horribly at the airport, and put in handcuffs and shackles and strip searched. I mean, they're not doing this with Hunter. Why aren't they going after some of the real criminals that are causing problems for our country? So the midterms are coming up. I think the Democrats are just, they're delusional, thinking that they're going to do fairly well. Bill Clinton doesn't think it's going to be a red wave. But
I will tell you this, John, and mark my words. Write the date down and the time I said it right now. The Liz Cheneys of the world, all these people are going to have no place to hide once we come back in, and they're going to be taken out very quickly.
Well, I think that's true. Now, I want to remind people, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, just go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends about the show, let them know what's going on. And we're going to do a show every week and try to keep you up to date as we move into the midterms. Now, to me, this is a real problem for Joe. This day one, he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, right? He made promises on the campaign trail, even when he was debating with Bernie Sanders. He said, we're going to work it out. We're going to get rid of fossil fuels. Well, that was a huge mistake. There's no basis for it. It's just amazing how off the track these people are. And it's going to really bite them in the ass. Now, this Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, I read an article where she exercised $1.6 million of stock in an EV company that she invested in, or maybe she was on their board. But this is the kind of ethics and shenanigans that we don't want any part with. So anybody else got a comment on the midterms?
I would just say that's a smart business deal on her part.
Yeah, it's called insider trading.
I don't know about that, John. You can't prove that. She's allowed to have stock in all kinds of companies. You do, don't you?
Well, would you at least admit that it's a pretty Hippocratic, where she's going around saying everyone should drive EV vehicles, and she doesn't even use them at the Department of Energy? Well,
we're more into the hypocritic.
Yeah, she is a hypocrite. So let's move on to immigration. There's a new caravan moving north, and this is really going to be a problem. I mean, the Border Patrol is doing everything they can. Mira Flores' husband is a Border Patrol agent. The guy that went into Uvalde when the cops were sitting outside is a Border Patrol agent. So I have a lot of respect for the Border Patrol. Now I see where the Biden administration is going after the agents who were mischaracterized as using whips on immigrants. And it's just outrageous what this left agenda is doing. Now, Mitch, let's set up clip 2 and see what's going on. This is a French news broadcast showing how clueless and bad it is at the border.
Immigration, the issue at the top of the list at the Summit of the Americas held in Los Angeles this week. The topic is especially pressing as a group of 4,000 people have left the southern Mexican city of Tapachula on Monday. They're heading to the U.S. border and hope to draw attention from authorities at the summit.
I tell global leaders that this has been a very difficult journey, but nothing is impossible. We had to fight for our families and a better future.
After recording the highest number of migrants at the US border in 2 decades last year, the US seeks to address the root causes of migration. A $3.2 billion investment in a bid to create jobs and boost financial services in Latin America.
When we provide economic opportunity for people in Central America, we address an important driver of migration.
Economic aid that will focus mostly on the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras and El Salvador. They are ironically missing from the summit. They declined their invitation after the US excluded Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela on grounds they did not reflect democratic ideals. The Mexican president also decided to boycott the summit this year.
We argue that no country should be excluded. No country has the right to tell another how to govern itself.
The absence of 6 heads of state, 6 major actors in the migration crisis, nonetheless cast doubt over the summit's ability to deliver on the pressing issue of migration.
If you struggle to lose weight, you must see this.
That's a French outfit.
A fat-dissolving loophole.
Broadcast there. It's getting worse. I don't know exactly where that caravan is, but they're working their way north. Now, how can you have a summit on immigration and not have Mexico there? I mean, they're the direct country that borders our country. And I think that President Trump had it exactly right. When you see what Joe's done there, President Trump, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's horrible to see it. Has anybody ever asked the question, you notice these people that are walking, who's organizing these massive migration? Every few months they keep coming and they all have clean clothes on.
Yeah,
Who's
look
doing
at
their
this.
laundry?
I mean, who do you think supplied these shirts that are up behind me?
Why are these people so clean if they've been walking so far? How can they do this? You know, and the other thing is, you know, when you look at what the clip just said about the Mexican leader, that no country has a right to tell another country what to do. Well, we do. Yes, we can. We can stop people from coming into our borders. It's not about telling them what to do. It's protecting the American people.
Well, there's a constitutional mandate for the president to protect the borders. Now, Bill Clinton, what do you have to say?
Well, you know, President Biden has proposed to expand legal pathways to discourage illegal immigration. But there's a different way. You know, to the U.S., we've got to listen. We've got to listen to ourselves. And I applaud Kamala Harris for what she said. But on June 10th, U.S., Canada, Argentina, Brazil, and a dozen other nations issued the Los Angeles Declaration on Immigration. This will provide a better way.
Well, I don't think the better way is to come here legally through the process that's been established for 100 years and not come across the border and cause all kinds of havoc. I mean, this makes no sense whatever. I mean, these people are not employable as far as I know. Where are we going to house them? Who's going to feed them? I mean, is this just going to go on the $30-something trillion tab of the American taxpayer? So Joe has no clue on the border. And I think that it's a real problem. Any other comments on
Well, yeah, I would just like to add, are you aware of the H2 project, H2A?
Well, those visas?
Well, it'll help support U.S. farmers hiring agricultural workers under the H2A program. So it'll be better for everybody. It'll provide jobs, the jobs that people don't want to do here. Or it'll make it more legal for them.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they get to stay. That means a temporary work visa for the season and they go back home.
Well, I think we try to be compassionate. There's got to be some compassion in there as well.
Well, I think we've had plenty of compassion. The American people are the most generous people on the face of the earth. And to say that we're going to take 2 to 5 million people in, and it's just ridiculous. We can't do it. There was a process. We had to remain in Mexico, and the amount of illegal crossings was down to an all-time low when President Trump was in charge.
Well, I'll tell you something. It sounds like Bill's on the Titanic rearranging deck chairs. That's exactly what he's doing. Doesn't make any sense. It's not working for anyone, and it's coming at a terrible cost not to just those people, but to the United States of America.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't have a luxury of having all kinds of surplus funds. I mean, you look at the schools and the roads and the hospitals, you've got to plan for that stuff. You can't have this unbridled open border. And I think it's an open border. Joe has no clue what is going on. Neither he or his vice president have ever actually gone to the border to see what's going on. I know President Trump was down there. I know Maria Bartiromo was down there. A lot of congressional Republicans were down there. It's just ridiculous what's going on. So we'll have to see what's happening with this caravan. But I think it's really sad. Now let's move on to inflation. Inflation is causing all kinds of problems for senior citizens, people on fixed incomes. You know, it's just outrageous what's going on. Now, the consumer price index excludes food and energy. So when you hear about 8.6% inflation and you throw in food and energy, you're getting closer to 15 to 20%. Bill Clinton, do you possibly think this is going to serve your party well going into the midterms?
Well, inflation's never good for anybody in any administration. And, you know, many times things goes in cycles, but I do think that we will navigate our way through. You know, the stock market right now is having a big sell-off, and I think that'll end soon too, because the Fed will stave it off by raising interest rates. And what they're trying to do, John, is stave off inflation, therefore putting us in a recession. And I don't see a recession going to happen. In my experience, I think it's going to be tight for a couple of months, but I do think we'll get control over it and bring inflation back down, and also will come back down is the interest rates. And as they start to drop, then the inflation will get better.
Well, where did you get those talking points? Was that from CNN or was that from Joy Reid or, you know, Rachel Maddow? Where did you get those talking points? I mean, even the Secretary of the Treasury admitted that this is no longer, you know, transitory. I mean, that was a great phrase they came up with, and I think that's going to backfire big time. People are not going to put up with this, and we've had enough. So these midterms are coming at the right time.
I know it's tough. I know it's hard for people to pay these high gas prices and all, but we got to hang in there. And I think you're going to see some positive changes by the end of the year that will get a hold of this inflation, stop it above 8.5%, bring it back down to 6%, and stocks will start to grow again, and the confidence will grow, the sell-offs will stop, and interest rates will begin to come back down and help us. So you asked me a question about where I got my information from. Well, I'm a researcher. You know, I'm an avid reader, and I've been watching a lot, and I read a lot. And so I listen to a lot of the economic experts, and not just MSNBC, but believe it or not, even Fox once in a while gets something right.
There you go.
You know, I get my information spread across a lot, and I also get a lot from the defense industry, and I get a lot of information that some people are not privy to.
Okay, well, the biggest change I see happening at the end of the year is that Nancy Pelosi will have to hand the gavel over to Kevin McCarthy or one of the other Republicans. So I think we're going to see real change, and it's going to come with kind of the end of this woke, clueless agenda that your party is pushing. Now let's move on to inflation, which ties.
Can I just say one other thing, John?
Yeah.
You know, for our listeners and our viewers, if you could please hit the like and sub, we would greatly appreciate you joining our show, because I have nowhere to go and nothing to do, and I love being on the show every week, and I'd love you to join us.
Okay, well, that's a great endorsement. Now, Mitch, let's cue up clip number 3 and get a little feel of an update on inflation, which I think is going to be a huge item going into the midterms. I mean, when 82% of the people feel the economy is not in good shape, that's a real telltale. So let's take a look here.
Can I ask you where those numbers came from, John?
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Mitch. I think he wants to run the video.
I think he wants you to answer your where the numbers came from.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Where did he get his numbers from?
Well, I get them from a couple of sources. I look at Fox News. I read like you do as well.
Well, that's the problem right there.
Yeah. Well, you know, it would be great if, I think that you don't deny those numbers, do you?
I would say they're suspect. Some of those numbers could be suspect. Anybody can write down a number.
Well, we'll see, but let's play this clip, Mitch, and see where maybe we get some. This is NBC News here. Let's see what they have to say.
The red arrows on Wall Street represent real money for American families. Mutual funds, 401ks, college savings, and pensions all sliding. As today's report shows inflation even worse than last month, now running at 8.6%, the fastest pace since 1981. And there is nowhere to hide. Food up 10.1%, led by soaring egg prices as bird flu ravages chicken flocks. Housing up 5.5%, and gasoline surging every day. $4.99, today's national average, but $6.42 a gallon in California.
I'm stopping at 40. I'm not going over 40. I don't care where it gets me.
Also driving inflation higher, airfares. Domestic airfares averaging $403 round trip. From here in Atlanta out to LA, up 65% from 2019. From New York to Denver, up 58% from 2019. From Chicago down to Orlando, up 47%. At American Coney Island in Detroit,
there you go, you're all set.
Third-generation owner Grace Karros says her costs have soared this year.
26% on buns, 12% on a paper bag, 25% on a hot dog, almost 30% on ground beef and chicken.
In Los Angeles today, President Biden blamed the higher prices worldwide on shippers who are price gouging and Russia's war in Ukraine.
But we've never seen anything like Putin's tax on both food and gas.
Many economists also blame pandemic-related stimulus money and the Fed for not acting sooner. Now the pressure is building on Chairman Jerome Powell to raise interest rates even faster to bring inflation under control. Some experts calling for a full 1% hike next week.
He's got to get control of that narrative and say, listen, we're not going to dribble out the medicine. Let's take it now.
But while pay raises have been wiped out by inflation, unemployment remains near 50-year lows for now.
You know what? We're still here. We're still serving customers, and the sun is shining.
Tom, I'm trying to imagine what some of the dinner table conversations are right now. What is consumer sentiment telling us?
Well, the numbers right now are pretty bad. Consumer sentiment now at the worst levels on record dating back to the 1970s. And the reason is simple. Inflation eats into every family budget. And at the moment, virtually everything Americans are buying costs more. And there's a very real risk that the country is now headed for a recession, Lester.
Well, there you go, Bill.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
That's NBC. That's one of your favorite channels. I mean, those people realize what's going on. You know, you can see at kitchen table issues, gas prices, grocery prices. I mean, I was up at Walmart on Tuesday, and there's still a little bit of a supply issue, and everything's up at least 10%. So I think that you guys are really kind of kidding yourself that this is all going to be transitory. And if Joe just gets his act together, everything's going to be fine. I think you're going to be shellacked in November. We're going to shut down your clueless woke agenda. And I can't wait for election night. What do you think?
Well, I think that your words are hurtful. Once again, I don't think it's, I don't think anybody has used the term transition lately. I mean, we heard that about 3 weeks ago. But
oh, yeah, it sounded good 4 weeks ago when they thought it would be a short-term thing. But they were all saying, I could probably find a montage of all the different liberal networks talking about everything being transitory. You had your president doing that. You had your secretary of, the Treasury doing that. I mean, that was the talking points for about 2 weeks, that this is all transitory.
Well, we're in for a ride. Everybody knows it. And I think we're going to come out of it much better at the end. We're going to come out on top.
I just think we're going to come out on top. Why are you so confident that we're going to come out on top?
Because things never stay at the bottom forever. Once we decline inflation, once we bring down the interest rate, first they're going to have to raise it to stave it off. Then once they get control of it, they're going to bring the interest rates down, and it'll increase consumer spending, and also hopefully gas prices at that time might come down some.
Well, I think the only ride we're going to see is a nice ride for President Trump and his endorsed candidates on November election night. And I hope not. Yeah, well, we'll see. So you think Joe just needs a little more time, and Granholm and Buttigieg and Kamala Harris, they just need a little more time to get their act together?
Well, I think not just them, the whole entire administration is working hard to try to achieve the goals for the American people. And I think they'll continue to do it.
Okay, well, we'll see. The midterms are coming up here now. We had a good show tonight. Let's get some closing comments from anyone on the panel with what they saw or heard tonight and what they see going on the next week.
I tell you, it's unbelievable tonight. I should have worn my boots. The floor is so high, full of mess. It's over up to my knees. The BS I'm hearing out of Bill. He knows he's wrong. He knows he's full of it. And you know what? His little sound bites and all aren't going to matter, because you're not going to fool the American people all the time. They're hurting. And they're hurting for a reason. They were not like this when I was in. They're hurting. And they're sick of it. They're tired of it. And we're going to change it.
That's great. Now, Mitch, you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, I just think this whole idea of banning guns and taking away guns being the solution to ending gun violence is completely backwards, because once you make guns illegal to all the normal people who have a right to bear arms or who buy guns legally, and you take away all of their weapons, all the people who are criminals that will get access to guns illegally will know that everyone else is defenseless because their guns have been taken from them. And I see it flipping and it becoming a much worse situation if you don't have the gun to protect yourself. I think that we have that God-given right to protect ourselves, and we have that in the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah, so I agree with you. We should try some criminal control. You know, the Constitution talks about, you know, cruel and unusual punishment. We don't want that. Well, I've been down to Central America. What we could do is house people down there for 1/5 of what it costs to incarcerate them here in this country. So you have an obligation as a citizen to be a good law-abiding citizen, not cause problems for your community and the people who live on your neighborhood. So there's just too much crime in these Democrat-run cities. And I think President Trump had it under control. And I can't wait for election night. President Trump, are you going to be in Florida? Where are you going to be on election night?
You know, I'm not certain. We haven't really determined where we're going to be, but it's going to be great. And it's just going to be the start of things to happen later.
Yeah, I can't
Start
wait.
with that, and it's going to build. We're going to keep building. We've got a plan for the next year that's going to knock your socks off. So get ready. Things are going to be better. We've got to go to hell and come back. We will bring you back. We will make you number one once again.
I love it. Let's do it. Okay, Mitch, why don't you close us out of the show for tonight? And we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you all for joining us this week on General Jobs, and we'll see you next week. God bless America.
God bless you all.
Okay, great.